Welcome back. Your time is 5:26. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, former European Union deal negotiator Michel Barnier has said that the European Union will reject any future Labour government Brexit renegotiation unless they go the full Monty and they agree to full freedom of movement. Now, this will be a blow to Labour, who plan to revisit the Brexit deal to ease trade restrictions and form closer ties with Brussels, but have insisted that they will not rejoin the single market or customs union or indeed sign up to freedom of movement. Well, I'm joined now by the Deputy Leader of the Rejoin EU party, Richard Morley. Richard, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have you on. Doesn't this show the full naivety of any government who thinks you can have a half-in, half-out tinkered deal with Brussels? They don't want to tinker. They either want full rejoin or get out of the party.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, obviously, the Labour Party is living in a world of its own if it thinks it can do what the Conservative Party couldn't, namely do cherry-picking, have what it wants, regardless of what suits the European Union. Michael Barnier is simply talking common sense. The Labour Party is pushing a loser with this current policy. It will get nowhere.
And yet, Richard Morley, when Michel Barnier, the same Michel Barnier, who's an advocate of freedom of movement, an advocate of de facto open borders, when he put himself forward as a presidential candidate in France in 2021, you can guess what's coming. He wanted to suspend immigration to France to 3 to 5 years due to its links to terrorism. The guy has a shifting position on open borders whenever it suits him, and therefore, I put it to you, he cannot be trusted.
Well, I don't think I'm really here to discuss the pros and cons of Michael Barnier as a politician. What I am here to discuss is what the British people want for their future. And I'm absolutely convinced that a very considerable number of people in Britain would like to see the return of freedom of movement for various reasons. Young people want to see freedom of movement because it opens up all sorts of opportunities for them to live and work abroad, albeit for short periods, albeit for long periods. Industry wants to have freedom of movement so it can have seasonal workers coming back to the farms and the hospitals and the hotels, which are really suffering without the European element of labour force which we had before Brexit. So consequently, freedom of movement is an essential thing for both parties, for Europe and for Britain. And I can fully understand why Michael Barnier is saying it.
Well, except he didn't say it when he wanted to stand as the president of France. And that's my point. Freedom of movement is bandied about as something that's hugely beneficial when you want something out of it, because Brussels wants something out of Britain. They don't want to, if it's freedom of movement to allow millions of European Union citizens to come here and take working class jobs, they won't take jobs in journalism or top jobs in the city. They'll take the plasterers' jobs, the plumbers' jobs, the lorry drivers' jobs. This is precisely what people voted to get rid of, Richard Morley. We can't just turn back the clock by death through 1,000 treaties.
Yes, but when Michael Barnier was standing as president of France, he was standing in a completely different context. I'm sure what he was saying there was appropriate to his candidacy in France. What he was saying as European negotiator was very pertinent to his role as the European negotiator. Two completely different jobs, two completely different approaches. I mean, I don't quite follow why it's so important what he said as a prospective candidate for the French elections.
Well, it's abundantly clear. It's abundantly clear because he said, he's basically saying, I've got principles, but if you don't like them, I've got a different set of principles. When he was a Brexit negotiator, he was against freedom of movement. Suddenly, when he went to be a French president, he's dead against freedom of movement. That is hypocrisy. That is double standards. Say what you like about people like Nigel Farage. They never changed their position. They were clear from the start. Michel Barnier is not clear. He's a shapeshifter. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but we had a Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, not so long ago, still sadly within our memories. And Nigel Farage pointed out today how he has done a complete volte-face on the question of European responsibility for the Ukrainian war. That he says one thing whilst in one set of circumstances, and then he says another thing a year later in a different set of circumstances. I'm afraid this is what politicians do. And that is why I wouldn't trust any of them. the Rejoin EU party is not a party of politicians. It's a party of ordinary people, ordinary working people who are standing up to represent the other working people of Britain. And we are not politicians trying to carve our careers like perhaps Barnier and certainly Johnson. We are here to represent the people of Britain.
OK, Richard Morley, well, 17.4 million people, they also represented the voice of Britain and they voted against staying in the EU. Richard Morley, thanks for joining us. Always a delight. We can agree to disagree politely. That's the point of this show.